my sweet souls. Welcome to Rebel Fate. I'm Christy, but here I'm just Mama Kris. This is a space where truth breaks chains, where love reclaims power, where your soul finally gets to breathe. If you've been told to worship outside yourself or to fear the fire within, this podcast is your invitation to remember who you really are. So let's wake up together. Hey everybody, this is Mama Kris here for my number 5 episode, and it's been going just really well, and my heart is overflowing. I have a guest today, my very, very, very first guest. His name is Stephen Rigo, and I met him on Facebook. I just started seeing his posts. Somehow he was ending up in my algorithm. Because I look at a lot of the awakening type posts and people that are starting to come online, that fire inside starting to wake up, and we're starting to realize, I think we've been getting duped here, for a really, really long time. And something's up, and I want to know more about it. And that's the whole reason why I started Rebel Faith. And I saw Stephen, and he was making these excellent, excellent posts. I have to say, probably the way he does it with humor and a little bit of comedy, it's very, very relatable. And so I had to reach out to this guy, and we became friends. But this is actually, today is the very first day that we've actually talked. Right here, right now on this podcast. You know, I like to keep it raw. You know, I like to keep it real. So this is it. This is him and I going at it for the very first time. So please welcome Stephen Rigo.
Happy to be here. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So please, let's go into right away. Let's just cut right to it. What changed for you? Because obviously you were once a Christian. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a bit complicated. It's funny that you mentioned that because today I felt to kind of make my position known. I don't like labels, but I was like, what the heck? Let me throw a label out there just for people to kind of understand where I'm at. So things can get a little finicky, but I basically label myself as an esoteric Christian mystic. I had to think about that as far as, just trying to select that which best describes my positions. So that was, coming out with that was an interesting ordeal. I was an ex-fundamentalist evangelical situation.
So there you were, and I myself wasn't, a minister, and I was very, very heavy into Christianity. I had that moment, and it was in May 2021, where something wasn't sitting right, and I knew that something was up, and it kind of evoked my passion in within my chakra. And I started learning about chakras. I started learning about getting more away from Christianity and looking into more Mid-Eastern teachings. And that's what led me to my awakening. Tell me about yours. How did it happen for you?
Well, it was interesting because my wife was actually in St. Lucia doing something for, I forgot what it was. It was like for like a job or something like that. And I was watching, do you know the Next Level Soul podcast?
I love Alex Ferrari so much. Oh my God. He's helped me tremendously on my journey. That's so weird that you said that. Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. So it's him and Aaron Abke. So I was
Yes.
just kind of fooling around on YouTube. I mean, I was already kind of like questioning, kind of like a little bit of an intellectual rebel in the Christian community, asking too many questions. I just didn't really have the courage. But it just kind of came to at that point, I was kind of labeling myself as a progressive Christian. The needle was already moving. But and then I was watching Next Level Soul, and I was kind of listening to near-death experiences, which are really scientifically verifiable. And when you listen to enough of them, you really, number one, you're encouraged. Like, wow, like reality is not as crappy as we were told. That everything's gonna be okay. And it really started with that. And then things just started unraveling. I got introduced to Paramahansa Yogananda. I started getting introduced into self-realization teachings from the East. And then I had my wife came back from St. Lucia, and then she was like, "Who the heck is this guy?" And then I had like seven like vivid dreams.
Tell me about those dreams.
That would take too long, but I'm just gonna like just quickly lay 'em at you. So it started with me asking, I wanted to meet my spirit guide. Little did I know that that night I would actually have I call them vivid dreams, not lucid because they were almost intuitive but very vivid. So I walked into this. It was like a barn. It looked kind of almost looked like 14th, 15th century. It was medium height, blonde man with green eyes. I can even remember what he looks like. He was sitting in the left side, and I was acting like myself. It's such a pleasure to meet you. And his name's Harry. So that was my first dream. Um, my second dream, it would take a little bit long to go through them all, but I'm going to try to get through them fast. Um, One of them was um, going into like a spiritual school. I was like walking up these steps. I ended up in front of a classroom. There was this teacher walking by, and everything was telepathic. And she said that she was feeling some kind of like energy within the room. And then she walked up to me, and then she said, "Open your mouth." So I opened my mouth. She pulled out an energy out my mouth, and I woke up the next morning. I told my wife about it, and she was like, "Yeah, we both know what this means. It's like it was my time to start opening up." So there was that. And then there was a dream where I was in a vacation home where, in a sense, I had a role of being like, I would say like a protector or a guardian of the kids that were in the vacation home. And one kid was having a nightmare on the other side. I walked over to try to comfort him, and I found like there was a giant wizard on top of the house. And it was just really, really cool. I flew through the ceiling and then scared him off. And then another dream I had, I call this my Kundalini awakening. I know you were mentioning to me that you had yours. I think
Mm-hmm.
mine was like in a dream because it's often associated with like fire and energy.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw myself in a room where there was a furnace in front of me, and it kind of had this like awe-inspiring feeling, like I was in front of like this fire, and it was just like, ooh, ooh, where am I? And then I exited the room, and I felt like I was in a void. I was in a black void. And then at that point, I felt uh, like, like the energy of the entire universe just like explode from the center of my body to the east and to the west, and it was like infinite. It felt like like it was just everything. You know what I mean? So there was that, and then there was a few others, but I think that's enough for now.
So
It's
that's
been
how
crazy.
you, yeah, it is crazy. I mean, it really is. You come out of it going, what, oh my God, what happened to me? It feels like all the information, more than you could possibly handle with your brain, just got downloaded into you in like a few seconds. And you can't come out of it. You just can't, you're just stunned. You just can't, like, oh my God, what was that? But you can't, I always like to say that you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. Once it's
Nope.
in you, it's in you, and you can't go back to being blind or pretending that everything was the way it was, because it's not. Like, you all of a sudden you know that you're a being having a human experience. You
Yeah.
know that this isn't reality. That reality is something else. And so then I got very confused. I was like, well, if it's not out there, where is it? And all along, it was in me, and I had to go within. And then that's when the teachings of Jesus started really making sense to me. As a minister, there were so many questions I had, but they really started making sense to me. Where he said, "The kingdom of heaven is inside of you," and I was always like, "What the heck does he mean about that?" And I'd ask, and people would be like, "Oh, it just means that you got to love Jesus with your heart, and your heart's inside of you." And I'm like, it just seems like there's just more to some of the things he says than what they're saying he's saying. So that's what led
Yeah.
to me. How did this impact so you gained this knowledge, everything I'm saying, you completely understand. Share one of
Yeah.
your posts on Facebook that you think is the most impactful for those watching us right now that are going through or starting to get a little tingle of some of the things that we're talking about here. Talk about some of your posts and why you post them, and what you would give to this audience watching right now.
Yeah, essentially, the kind of content that I focus on is really just trying to encourage a very raw conversation with God, not a fear-based relationship with God. That religion, that mainstream religion gives you where you're not really free to ask those questions. But if you do, we have we have 50, 100, 1,000 prepared sheets of answers that we've already established for you to believe if you get a little sketchy.
Hmm.
So, but that's not a genuine search for truth. So basically, I'm just like really raw and honest, and I don't know. I just kind of feel like this is like my gifting to kind of like, I call it like the heart mind complex. I kind of feel like God has given me a strong heart mind complex, so that I can not only like, kind of like feel what God is trying to communicate through our heart, but also communicate it in a way that um, is not just not just intellectually defensible, but also intuitive. You know, so I guess I would just say that it's just like people could definitely benefit. If they're searching, if they were honestly just searching, just to have like a really good space for them to you know have what I would deem quality thinking, um, a quality conversation about God.
How would you describe what people are calling right now the awakening, and what the Christians call the rapture, and what New Age likes to call the ascension? How would you describe what's going on Earth today? The fact that millions are waking up all over the Earth. That outpouring, would you call that solar flashes, the Holy Spirit? Because I see how the two connect. I can see the New Age and the Christian religion, and many other writings and scriptures and things that bring everything together to really make sense. Do you believe that we are leaving the age of Pisces and going into the age of Aquarius, and and that love? How do you perceive that taking place? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I definitely believe we're going into a new age, that's for sure. Um, this is just my opinion, but like, um, just because there's such a culmination of various facets, you know what I mean? Um, like when you look at the global stage, you have globalization. The world is more connected more now than ever. You have the internet. You have more information that is accessible more now than ever. You have democracies. You have not only that, but the rapid increase of technology, which has, had both positive and negative effects, but especially, um, the rise of medical technology, which has caused an improvement in resuscitation, uh, the success of resuscitation and technology about resuscitation to allow just such an influx of near-death experiences, and these people are coming back, millions of them coming back with information from the other side.
Hmm.
And in my opinion, I think all of this, from what I'm seeing, unless there's something else that I have not seen, all of that is kind of working together just to almost accelerate kind of the world's consciousness. So there's nothing like it. It's
Yeah,
completely new.
I've always seen God, as you perceive God to be, working really in a very, even years ago, even before my awakening, in a scientific nature more than just a magical type of nature. And um,
Yes.
and I definitely, a lot of Christian believers believe that AI is evil, and that it's going to be the end of the world. I believe that it's what you make it. And I believe that it's ushering in definitely the end of this age. I know in Revelations it says Satan knows his time is short. And I believe that the deception and the evil that has been on this earth, its time is short. And I believe that technology is ushering in that beautiful new earth, because we're all able to communicate now in ways that we never
Yeah.
could with before. And we're basically, calling bullshit. and we're going, these systems may have worked on us before, but now we're communicating and we're understanding and we're learning that we're actually divine. And I think it's their worst nightmare, and it's going to cause them to crumble because they can't control us anymore.
Correct.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that like religion for the last 2,000 years been has been definitely hijacked by the human ego to be used for power and control. Um, that's definitely the case. And But fear is not a sufficient precondition for any kind of relationship whatsoever. You know what I mean? And no healthy relationship on earth should be established by or sustained by or undergirded by fear. So why should it be that way with God? That just doesn't make any sense.
Thank
So
you.
it doesn't lend to a genuine relationship. I feel like, you know, any true God is going to want you to ask as many questions as possible, take risks, make mistakes, you know what I mean? And be like, yeah, go down that way, learn. I'll be here for you. You know what I mean? And not have all this guilt tripping because, as you know, I mean, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a sociologist, but I think I've heard through the grapevine that, like, for example, that parental style, it doesn't end well for the kid. You know what I mean? So I don't see how that would work for our relationship with God. So
Or any
it really
relationship.
just has to do with the fall of the fear systems. Yes.
Or any relationship that is based on fear and control. I would tell anybody that if you're in a relationship where they're trying to control you using fear tactics, run, and people are starting to realize we've been doing a lot of deep what Aaron Apke actually calls. I think he coined the term shadow work. Is that correct? Going within and forgiving and taking those traumas that happened to you and realize that this isn't our home. This isn't reality. This is a place where we learn and where we grow. And I can
Yes.
take those things that I consider traumas and I can actually thank them and turn them into blessings because I don't think you or I, and excuse me for speaking on your behalf, but you have a very beautiful heart. And I don't think you or I would be where we are, where we cared so much about others and the deep love that we have that drives us to post the things that we post, knowing that we're going to get, lose friends or even family members over it. But the passion is so strong because we want people to have this freedom and this understanding that we have so much. Do you agree with that?
Yes, and I also think it's important not to BS people as to how this is achieved. You know what I mean? It's not about spiritual bypassing. It's we all suffer. It's using your suffering, letting it teach you, let it teach you all the wisdom that it has. Because I'm sure you could attest that like you would not be where you are. I would not be where I am unless we were students of our suffering.
Exactly. That's
You know
why
what
I
I
can
mean?
think it. Yes.
Yes. So I'm very not spiritual bypassing oriented. I will shoot you straight between the eyes with the truth, the cost that it's going to take. Kind of like when Jesus said, kind of like two verses, kind of like, he who's not willing to leave his, family and his friends and basically his home country and the things that matter the most to him. Like, if you're not willing to give it all up, then the highest prize or the highest calling is not for you. You know what I mean? And he would also say, you have to carry your cross. So the truth requires everything from you. It requires an ego death. It requires you to have no will of your own, but to be essentially one with the divine. And that's the spiritual path, is to be one with the divine.
It hurts. It hurts to go
Yes,
through
it
it.
does.
Yeah, you can't sugarcoat it and go to some classes where you cry a little bit and scream a little bit, and it takes raw, authentic,
Yes.
deep soul getting down and dirty with it. You got to get down and dirty with it, and you got to take a hard, cold look at yourself. things that, instead of blaming others and being the victim, you gotta admit to yourself. I love that part of the Bible you're talking about where Jesus was talking about picking up your cross and following him, and those are so true. But I love the one where you're talking about detaching, where you have to let go of all these earthly things. And you have to
Yes.
go after the man left everything behind in search of the one pearl, and
Yes.
he went looking for that pearl with all of his might. And that right there is when you find that pearl. People are like, what do you mean, gaining Christ consciousness? Give me a 1, 2, 3 step on how to do it. Well, I wish I could. That would be great. But they tried to do that with the church, and they
Yeah.
mucked it up, because you
Hmm.
can't take, when it takes, you know 15 ingredients to bake this cake, and you're here's a candy bar. Just come up to the
Hmm.
altar, say this little prayer, and you're going to go to heaven. No, I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. You have to go within, and you've got to go in search of this pearl with all of your heart. And it's so hard because, you can't put words to describe this process. It's all I can say to people, and I'm wondering if you'll agree, is you got to want it with everything. You have to detach from everything. You still can't be wanting that relationship. You got to let go of your mother, your father. He said, "Who is my mother? Who is my brother?" You got to let go of all of that in search of that pearl within. And when you get still with yourself, if you'll just give your time to get still, I'll tell you one thing though, ain't nothing gonna get you there faster and better than a hardcore smack face down in the dirt, someone dying, going through a horrible betrayal or a
Hmm.
loss.
That's what it
Or
takes.
yes, that's what it takes, and that's where you start. And people are like, well, there's nothing going wrong in my life right now. Well, ask for it. If you really want it, you better know what you're getting into. Like Bill said, he goes, if you ask God for patience, you're going to get tested. If you want this, you're going to get tested. You're going to
Yes.
get, you're definitely going to get tested. So, talk about that a little bit more about the raw facing yourself, and I mean, I don't know about you, but I thought I was going to die. Like I literally wanted to kill myself. I'm making light and laughing about it right now, but I was drinking constantly. I was staying in my bed. I was severely depressed. And there were times when I would go in the bathroom, barely making it to the bathroom, and look at myself in the mirror and just look at pills and just go, just take them, just end it. And my higher self would grab me, and I would switch like a freak. And I would look at myself in the mirror, but it wasn't me. It was my higher self. She was going, you are not going to give up. This is not your destiny. You will not do this. And I would just like be shaken inside out of it. Have you ever had anything like that happen to you?
Well, not, I mean, to me, what I went through was dramatic. Um, I didn't go through that, but like, I was really, you know, I, growing up, I was a mama's boy. Okay, love my mother still to this day. My wife had to pry me out of where I'm from in Rhode Island, bring me down to Florida, 1,500 miles away, and kind of like this is going back to that verse in Matthew. Or not Matthew. Oh, it's probably in the gospel. It's probably in every gospel. Haven't looked that up, but how you have to kind of leave it all behind, and that was just one thing. But that was kind of like, but also the desire to have a family, the desire to have a house. Not that that's not going to happen, but it's just one by one, every single attachment I had, I got on, medication for depression, anxiety, like so many other people,
Yeah.
was having panic attacks because, your ego just can't let go. And, just like, every faith tradition teaches you to let go of attachments and to let go of, um, not worldly desire, but worldly attachment. Because the thing is, just like the Eastern, I love how the Eastern traditions call it Maya, illusion, and how Christianity calls it, the grass withers and the flower fades, but the word of God endures forever. You know what I mean? It's like you live in this world. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that everything that you have is going to be taken from you eventually. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
just knowing that, just the sooner you get that in your head, and going down that rabbit trail of wisdom will lead you to these faith traditions. And
Thank
the
you.
sooner that you let go of those egoic attachments and find your fulfillment in, just like the yoga tradition calls, yoga means basically, divine connection or unity with God. And then theosis in the Christian mystical tradition is essentially, one with God. That's the goal, is unity with God, because that's our spiritual nature. And we're just trying to find that again in this life.
Well, it's been so amazing having you on the show, and I really want the listeners to be able to get in touch with you, whether it be social media or your website. I'm sure you could be a great big brother to a lot of people out there, a lot of young men that are kind of stepping into what you are. Can you give us your information?
Yeah, like right now, I'm still pretty early in my journey. So the best way to reach me right now would be my Facebook page. I'm very responsive to messages. So it's facebook.com/ascending, ASCENDING, 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 dragons. And yeah, that's the best place.
All right, Stephen. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And you and your wife be blessed. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.
If this stirred something inside of you, it's because your soul remembers. You were never meant to live in fear. You were meant to create, to embody, to radiate. Thank you for walking with me today. This is Rebel Faith. I'm Mama Kris, and I'll be right here reminding you you've always been the miracle.